Sometimes to make a technique work, especially if you're working or you have to remove somebody from a location, you got to bend them backwards. And that's what we're going to talk about today on Coffee with Alain. Thank you for joining me. I have the Halloween mug, Mickey and Minnie again, just because it's Halloween season. And in a couple weeks, I probably won't get to use this mug again for another year, right? So I'm using it this month because it's Halloween. Appreciate everybody joining. Appreciate everybody that watches replays and listens to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, the website, enjoylifesafely.com, wherever you watch or listen. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the comments and the feedback that I receive. Going to remind you, sign up for the Enjoy Life Safely newsletter. You'll get some free stuff right away on situational awareness and some tips and self-defense things to help you. And you'll get those emails coming out on Sundays to help you stay safe, enjoy life, and be exceptional. Also give you updates and different things of things that are going on. So be sure to sign up for those. enjoylifesafely.com. Let's talk a little bit about bending people backwards. Now, recently, I've been watching Nick Hughes's restraint and control course. Nick sent it to me to check it out, give some feedback and endorse it, which I do. Nick's a great instructor. He's been there, done that. He's worked many doors, member of the French Foreign Legion back when he was younger. The guy has a wealth of knowledge and experience. And this restraint and control course, really good course. There's a lot that is very similar and familiar to me because I did the restraint and control DVDs, which are going to be incorporated into the restraint and control course that I'm creating. Now the DVDs are a thing of the past. But I'll tell you, I've learned some new little tricks from Nick watching this course. Does things a little differently than I do in some things. A couple things was like, wow, never tried that one. And as I'm watching this course, I'm watching it with Brian, one of the Hapkido black belts, and we watch and then we get out on the mat and we play and do stuff. And there's a couple techniques that Nick was showing and a couple that, I've done before too, where you need to pull a person backwards to make it work. They have to be unbalanced. Get that head back behind them. And when you do that, the techniques can work and you can maneuver a person, because when you are bent backwards and your head, your back like this and your head is not over your spine, it's really hard to then stand back up, and it takes less pressure to keep somebody bent backwards, and then you can move them around and steer them and take them outside or wherever you need to take them. Where if they can get their head over their spine or forward, it's much more difficult to control that person. Now, both Nick and I teach this simple technique it's wonderful for getting behind a person. When you walk up and they're not really expecting it and you start to talk to them, you grab the arm and pull and you hit their other shoulder and you spin them. And it's amazing how quick you can spin somebody, especially if they're not really ready for it, because people have trouble stopping the spin motion. We're good going different, these directions, but it's tough to stop the spin, especially when you grab them and they're not expecting it to get spun like that. So when you spin them, what I always have taught and like to do is I usually hit with my right hand and pull with my left. And then my left hand drops down to the small of the back and I push, and that right hand pulls on the shoulder, and that gets them bent backwards. Now, I've used this numerous times to then go into a sleeper type hold, because your right hand is right up there to go around and your left hand is pushing. It gets them bent backwards, gets them a little bit lower, especially if they're taller than me, and drops them in where I can do a sleeper hold. But there are also other things you can do, and Nick shows those in that course, where you can just control a person, not put him to sleep, and remove him from the location. But that spin and keeping him bent backwards is essential. If they're not bent backwards, some of those techniques are not going to be as effective, and a person can fight out of them. And Brian and I, when we're on the mat, we're practicing those. We're checking it out. Okay, what if I'm this forward? Can you control me? It's like, nope, I can fight out of it. It's like, okay, he gets me bent this far and I can't fight out of it anymore. So it's just a very important principle to understand, especially if you're trying to control somebody and move them. It's important also if you can bend the person, take their balance, then you can take them to the ground and then handcuff if you're law enforcement, switch to a different technique if you're going to escort them out, wait for your partners to come so you can take them out in mass, which is always preferable. I mean, it's much better to have a group of you removing somebody than removing somebody by yourself. It just, the numbers help. But depending on where you're working, because I've been there too, sometimes all you have is yourself. And that's why we learn these techniques and strategies to be able to deal with people. One thing I like that Nick talks about, Mark McYoung used to talk about it, still talks about it, I talk about it. Your brain is your most important thing in those situations. You don't go into those kind of professions, oh, I'm big and tough and I'm going to smash skulls. If you use your brain, you don't have to smash as many skulls. You keep your head from getting smacked more too. So use your brain. And I'll give you one little tip that Nick provided in the DVD. So not DVD. My DVDs are turning into a course. Nick's is an online course already. I said DVDs because I have a bunch of Nick's DVDs back from the Paladin days too. But one thing I like that Nick shared, one of his best little tricks of getting somebody out of the bar is he would walk up to the guy and he'd whisper to him, say, hey, there's this hot chick that's waiting for you at the door, or say something like that. And then you immediately turn and walk away. You don't give him time to say stuff and question. You just talk about the hot girl that's waiting for him, and then you start walking toward the door. And 9 out of 10 times that guy's going to follow to see who you're talking about and who this hot girl is. And that gets them over to the door where you can eject them. Okay. So sometimes we use some of that cunning and conniving and, trickery to get things done easier and not have to go physical. Going to say good morning to Jay and Vicky. Appreciate you guys being here. Jay says big right. Jay used to study Hapkido with me until his life got busy and he had to stop training for a while. So he's been there, done that, and he's worked security and worked the door at different places. So he knows some of that kind of stuff too. And using your brain is always going to be the best. But that's just a little lesson. Remember, those principles help you keep safe, enjoy life, and be exceptional. Make it a fantastic Friday, and I will see you tomorrow.